What if your immune system, hormones, and even your thoughts were all part of one big conversation happening inside your body? On today's episode of What's My Body Telling Me, I'm joined by my good friend, the brilliant Dr Olivia Lesslar, a psychoneuroimmunologist who blends neuroscience, immunology, and clinical wisdom in a way that'll blow your mind. If you've ever wondered how emotions become symptoms, or if you've felt dismissed because your test results are normal but you know something's off, this episode will change the way you see your body forever. Welcome back to the What's My Body Telling Me podcast. Today we are joined by the lovely Dr. Olivia Lesslar. Olivia, I wanted to ask you, you are a psychoneuroimmunologist. What does that actually mean?
Those. Okay, so psychoneuroimmunology is essentially the hard science, in inverted commas, behind the soft science, in inverted commas, of mind-body medicine. So in other words, I think that most practitioners are practicing some form of mind-body medicine, and psychoneuroimmunology is just a way to sort of standardize things and look at things through an academic lens as well, to back up the things that we're saying about how your psychology can affect your behavior can affect your immunology can affect your endocrinology can affect your emotions, and so on and so forth. It is a web of bidirectionality.
So when you're saying immunology, endocrinology, that's like immune system, hormones. So would you say that this has something to do with the power of the way we think could possibly manifest physical symptoms?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's about how psychology, emotions, and dare I say spirituality can affect your physiology, how your body produces the enzymes and the neurotransmitters and all the rest of it. And also how your physiology affects your psychology, your behaviors, and can affect how you interact with other people as well. It gives practitioners and the layperson lots of levers to pull when it comes to trying to mitigate symptoms or, deal with different physical issues that they may or may not have. I think that all of us understand the multifactorial nature of disease and symptoms, but medicine for too long has been practicing to some extent a pill for every ill, which means that you come in with a symptom, you're going to get a treatment. And because we've been doing this for so long, people have been forgetting, I think, that there are other ways to deal with symptoms. And it's not just at the bottom of a pill bottle. So sleep is a really good example of a intervention, a behavior that has multiple effects on the immune system and the hormone system and your nervous system. So if you sleep well, you're going to sort of shore up a little bit against your nervous system. Your nervous system will be a little bit better equipped to deal with the punches of the day. If you sleep well, your immune system functions a little bit better. If you don't sleep well, then you're going to adversely affect these things. Same thing, if your immune system isn't doing so great and you've got these infections raging, it's going to affect your sleep, right? If your nervous system, if you're highly strong or your nervous system is a little bit upset, then it's going to impact your sleep as well. So trying to find some button to push in this big web that's going to be able to help your immune system or your nervous system or your sleep is where PNI, psychoneuroimmunology, really shines, because we are not didactic. It's not you've come in with this symptom of this disease and therefore this is the protocol of the treatment, take it or leave it. It is, okay, what are your wants? What are your hopes? Where can I meet you? What are you willing to change? What are you not willing to change? Because this needs to be a dance with the patient.
And I love that. I think it's interesting what you just said about sleep there, in that it is something that helps our symptoms. So if we are feeling stressed and we have had poor sleep, if we get better sleep, then that can help our stress. But also sleep is also a symptom. So if you're not able to sleep well, then that could be because your nervous system is dysregulated. So it's sort of like this loop. And I think exactly what you were saying about there's a pill for every ill. When we come from that standpoint, it's like we're treating our symptoms as the problem instead of the solution. Like the symptoms are actually the things telling us what our body needs. But I think exactly as you said, and I haven't actually mentioned this, but we're good friends now. And I think that's sort of how we connected was it's like, oh, we both realized in our traditional training that there was something missing. It didn't really make necessarily sense. And it would be lovely for you to talk a little bit more about that, about sort of your journey, about how you came to doing psychoneuroimmunology with your undergraduate and graduate training.
So I'm a conventionally trained medical doctor here on the Gold Coast. And then I trained for my residency at Tweed Heads Hospital when it was there. And then I got into GP training at Brunswick Heads and Benora Point. And then I left before I finished my GP training because it just wasn't the medicine I wanted to practice. Now, everything that I've done, I feel I kind of fell into it, or that the universe provided. Thank you. But, you do kind of get sucked into, a patient comes in, has a symptom, this is the drug you prescribe, or this is the treatment that you prescribe. It's easy. It's algorithmic, and then usually patients go off and their symptoms get better or get repressed. And they kind of struggle along for a little bit until the next symptom pops up. And that's when they see you again. So it's very easy, especially when you're churning through a massive volume of patients. It almost feels like that's how you have to practice, right? You just don't have the time to be following up and asking patients how they can optimize and why did this symptom actually pop up in the first place, and what was your immune system and hormone system and nervous system doing at the time such that it succumbed to this infection or this particular disease process. You just don't have time for that kind of stuff, really. And I just wasn't satisfied with that because it felt very hollow. And when I was in GP training, I started to talk to my patients more about lifestyle. And it really resonated. So within a very short period of time, I became very busy with patients who had all been referred to me by their friends and family and other parents at the schoolyard. And I realized that there was this need. Patients don't want to be band-aided anymore. They know that their bodies are telling them something and they want to know the ins and the outs and the whys and the hows. And so I started to educate myself on lifestyle medicine. And then I started to go deeper and deeper and deeper, because how is it that it is 2025 and actually we are more sick now than we have ever been? And I don't mean just, don't get me wrong, I totally understand the ravages of polio and tuberculosis, but nobody's walking around optimized, truly vital. There's always something. And having something has been normalized. A little niggle here, a little niggle there. You cannot open someone's pantry now, Australia or otherwise, without seeing a box of medications. That's normal. A box of medications, ibuprofen, paracetamol, at an absolute minimum. But what do those things do? They're meant to quell, band-aid, and shut up your symptoms. So how many people are actually figuring out, why do they have a headache? Why do they have this pain? And what is that pain trying to tell them? And that's why I love your message, because symptoms are messages from the body. Now, does that mean I don't use medications? Of course I do, right? Because like I said, you got to meet patients where they are. Helping to alleviate symptoms which are completely disruptive and forming some sort of speed hump to them being able to figure out what's wrong. Yeah, you got to give people relief if that's what they're after. Mm. I used to be that person where if I had a fever, I take something to get rid of the fever. If I had pain, I take something to get rid of that pain. It took me many years to now embrace the fever and embrace the pain. Now, I'm not here saying, yeah, you should, have a fever and run with it and, until you're delirious and all the rest of it. Of course not. Like, common sense is really important in this realm as well. But it's about sitting with the symptom and deeply connecting with it, because it is your body trying to talk to you, right? But that's basically how the conventional medicine I thought was failing patients, because it's not healing. It's pharmaceuticals.
That speaks to exactly what you said. Our baseline for what is actually healthy has shifted. We think, I'm surviving. That's great. That's what I'm meant to be doing. Instead of, how many people do you know that actually feel alive and they're vibrant and they're full of energy? It's like, if you found someone that was like that and they hadn't had coffee, they weren't on stimulants, they hadn't had all those other things, you'd be like, what? Is this person okay? Like, are they okay? Which just goes to show how messed up the world can be.
Right.
It's like our baseline has shifted that much that if you came across someone that was lit up about their life, had great relationships, loved what they did, was healthy, and wasn't on any medication or any type of stimulant, you'd probably think,
Because
what is
people
going on
are
with this person?
collecting diagnoses now, like Pokemon cards. Honestly, it really wasn't that long ago where um, cancer or IBD or autoimmunity or whatever it is were considered like things that would only happen to you much later on, you know, affecting you only sort of after 50 or something like that. Now, it is not unusual at all to start collecting diagnoses from childhood. So then you've got you.
On that, I find it interesting, particularly with the people that I work with as well, and I'm sure in your case too, and friends and family, when we're in that state of, I don't know what's going on. I've got a whole host of different symptoms. I feel like my body's trying to tell me something. I don't know what it is. And I go to the doctor, and this is a lot of people that I see. They get tests and they go, the doctor said everything was fine. It's normal. It's quote unquote, they feel like it's in their head. There's nothing wrong,
Yeah.
which I speak a lot about. It's like the doctors are looking for, do you need medication or surgery, particularly when we're talking about medical doctors. But it doesn't necessarily mean that your body's lying to you. It's still trying to tell you something. But then I often see people that go to the doctor and they say, yes, you have IBD, you have chronic fatigue syndrome, you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, you have some insert label. And the patient then goes, oh, okay, I'm not going crazy. I know what I have now. And there's a part of me that goes, no, don't stop there. Like, I'm glad that you feel some relief, but now I fear that you're just like, okay, that's part of my identity now. So
Yes.
how does putting that psychoneuroimmunology hat on, how does that impact someone's health trajectory when you take on the identity of a diagnosis?
Okay, yes, that is identifying with your illness is definitely can be a problem. But let's go back to the beginning of your little vignette. Sometimes a patient is searching for a diagnosis, and that's what they're saying. But actually, what they're looking for is someone who actually understands what's going on in their body. They're looking for understanding, and it's terrifying because these people aren't medically trained. Anything that seems out of the normal, is that a stroke? Like, is it something I need to go to the hospital for? And we see this actually in hospital, in emergency department. The number of people who come through to the emergency department with something that isn't an emergency, right? And you'll see that doctors and nurses alike get a little bit annoyed with these people. However, that's an education issue. That's an us issue for not explaining to them what's happening with their bodies and why this is happening. Because when you don't know, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know either, right? So these unknown and unusual symptoms, especially if someone cannot explain to you what's happening or can't give you a diagnosis, which basically a diagnosis given to you by a doctor means the doctor is saying, I know what's going on. And it's just such a relief for some patients. So that's the first part. I sometimes really do see that patients sometimes need that diagnosis because the uncertainty factor can be debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
The other part then is about identifying with the diagnosis. And that's where us doctors have really fallen down on our responsibilities to society, because the number of times we've told patients that XYZ is a progressive disease. The only thing that we can do is try and maintain things, slow down the descent into whatever it is. That's on us. It was only a few years ago that, up until a few years ago, that type 2 diabetes was considered a progressive disease, never to be put in remission. We know that's nonsense. And it's the same with autoimmunity. Up until very recently, autoimmunity was considered, once you had it, no, it's a lifelong progressive condition. That's bullshit. We know so many patients from their autoimmunity get put into remission, no, not just put into remission. God damn it, Olivia. They get better. They go back to being a whole vital person. This is the same with, and that's why that book, Radical Remission, when it comes to, terminal stage 4 cancers, that's why it's so fascinating, because all these are documented true cases of people who've come back, bounced back from terminal cancer. These things happen. And us telling patients that chronic fatigue syndrome is, once you get it, you're done for, that's you for the rest of your life, the placebo nocebo effect comes into play. And we have a responsibility not to be so frivolous with our language, because we can hem someone into that diagnosis. Now, of course, the patient has a responsibility too, to taking some control over what's happening. But like I said, they don't know what they don't know. And this is an unknown field to them. So really, us practitioners need to be taking better care, I think.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to beliefs, myths, what you're feeding your brain
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
understanding, okay, what do I feel is true for me and because what is truth? Like, we could get into a very existential conversation here, but it's like, well, whatever your truth is often where you're going to program yourself. And I talk about energetic, functional, and medical lenses of looking at the body. And when I think about energetics, I really just think of it like it's like the GPS program of your cells. Where do your cells feel like they're going?
Yeah, exactly.
So if your doctor or your friend is just like, oh, well, or say, for instance, you have a genetic family history of something. It's like, oh, it's genetic. It's like, okay, well, that's where it's going to go. That's where I'm going to go. It's like, well, it makes sense that I developed this illness because it's genetic.
Yeah, my dad has it. My grandfather has it. Therefore, that's why I have rheumatoid arthritis. This it doesn't work like that. You have predispositions, or you have a propensity for certain types of inflammation to occur in context of certain lifestyle factors, for example, or certain stressors or whatever it is. And then at some point, yes, that leads to what we are now calling rheumatoid arthritis, right? So from a P&I perspective, I think maybe delving more into how is it possible that your mind, your thoughts, your psychology, your emotions can actually have physiologic effects, because people don't realize how strong the science is for this. So just even the placebo and nocebo effect, right? So the placebo effect, as you know, is where if you think you're going to derive a benefit from, let's call it a pill, because usually placebo, nocebo is spoken of in context of clinical trials. If you think you're going to derive a benefit from an intervention, you will. If you think that you are going to receive harm from an intervention, you will. That's why up to 30% of clinical trials, the data gets skewed because it's due to placebo or nocebo, and they sometimes scrub it from statistical analysis, because otherwise, everything's whacked. So the placebo effect is proof that healing can start in your mind. We have a full pharmacy in our body. If you say to yourself, my headache is going to be relieved by taking this pill. And in the trial, this pill is just an inert pill, a sugar pill. And you do get better from your headache. That means that your body had to come together, cobbled together some, chemicals, or your mind had to push out certain brain waves or frequencies so that pain that you were feeling, which you call a headache, was alleviated. It's incredible. There is some really good studies in this realm, in allergy, actually. So, anybody with an allergic reaction knows that your breathing becomes constricted, and then you get rashes, and your lips can swell, your mouth can swell, your eyes close shut. Like, it's a terrifying experience. There is a study whereby a peanut allergy study where they had patients who had proven diagnosed peanut allergy. They're put in a room, and then someone walks in and goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That powder on the table, that's actually peanut dust." And the patients will have an allergic reaction.
Fully, like,
to,
mast cells get
like,
activated, histamines,
mast cells get, exactly. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
physiological response happens.
100%.
It's not just like, oh, I'm shortening my breath and I'm doing this sort of consciously. It's no, all of the chemicals in your body
The
get triggered the
biomarkers.
same.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
I mean, so I have a whole bunch of these sorts of studies in my head. So you let me know. You want to talk about placebo or nocebo? I'll give you another one. It's called the Clockwise study. It's a very famous study from 1979. I think it was published a little bit later on because the results were so incredible that they actually had to do other studies to sort of shore up the fact that what they did originally was so incredible. They had a big mansion, and they dressed it all up on the inside as if it was the 1950s. And they had a group of men who were in their 80s, I think it was, or so. And this, don't forget, this is 1979. They had these men in their 70s and 80s go into the house for a week. When they first rocked up to the house, nobody was there to bring their bags in. So they had to lug the bags in themselves. Inside was, like I said, furnished as if it was 20 years prior. There were all these magazines from 20 years prior, the music, the TV that they had only showed news and movies from that 20 years prior era, there were pictures of the men from 20 years ago. There were no mirrors. They were encouraged to speak about the 1950s events as if they were current. And after a week, there were remarkable changes to the men. So some that you would expect, they were happier, they were chipper, but they actually moved better. Some of them gained height because their intervertebral discs had rehydrated. Their eyesight got better. Their hearing got better. And those are some of the sort of more remarkable things that they had to sit on the results for a little bit, because some of these people who had walked in, with a cane to help them or in a wheelchair were walking out. It's incredible what your brain can do.
I think that speaks to the power of your body is always adapting. No matter how old you are, it is always adapting, and it's adapting to restore balance. So whatever environment you put your body in externally, like in the example that you just said, or the environment that you choose to have conscious control over internally, aka what your thoughts are, that is going to change how your body adapts, how your physical symptoms change, whether it's good or bad. And that's what that's such a great example of, I often refer to the body as a mirror. It's just mirroring back to you whether it likes the environment that you've put it in.
Yes, right. And that's the external and internal environment.
Yeah.
I'm quite, I'm still developing frameworks and clinical understanding about this, because your external environment can be completely chaotic and dangerous. But if you have at least one buffer between your cells and that is your mindset and your emotions around that, that actually gives you some resilience. So if everything around you is going to shit, and your mind, your emotions are in step, and you're going to shit too, your cells are going to panic. Everything around you is going to shit, but you're stealing your mind and you're stealing your emotions. And you're like, you know what? It's rough right now, but I'm going to get through this and I'm sure it'll get better. You give your cells some bandwidth, right? Because our cells are constantly trying to take in information from the external and internal environment, because it takes this information, assesses the information, usually checks in with the other systems, the other cells, to then determine how big of a risk whatever threat is, if the threat is even real.
How many times have you been told everything looks fine while you still feel exhausted, bloated, anxious, have skin issues, period pain, and totally feel off? Without saying it, people are thinking it's all in your head. But you know something isn't right. Your body knows it too. And let me tell you, your symptoms, they aren't random. They're messages. Messages that blood tests don't always pick up because they only show a snapshot in time. Great when you're bad enough to need medication or surgery, not so great when you want to make sense of your body. If you really want to understand what's happening beneath the surface, that's where Test Your Fundamentals comes in. This isn't just another test. It's a functional health tool that gives you real answers. Using HDMA, or hair tissue mineral analysis, it gives you a 3-month report card of how your body's been functioning, internally and externally, showing exactly why you're feeling the way you do. Unlike standard blood work, HDMA can detect nutrient imbalances, heavy metals, and deficiencies that could be wreaking havoc on your hormones, mood, metabolism, and gut. So instead of guessing what supplements you need or throwing money at another miracle diet, this gives you real, personalized answers about what your body actually needs. Here's how it works. You'll get a personalized HDMA test, a breakdown of your results in plain English, access to practitioner quality supplements, and a step-by-step lifestyle recommendations tailored to your 4 fundamentals. So you know exactly how to support your body your way. Your body isn't broken and it's always working for you. You just need the right tools to listen. That's what Test Your Fundamentals gives you. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start taking action, head to femalefundamentals.com.au and order your Test Your Fundamentals hair test today. There's also a link in our show notes.
So I have a clinical framework called the network of threat detection systems. What is a system? A system is how cells communicate with each other and produce chemicals or frequencies to respond to whatever it is that they're responding to. So the autonomic nervous system is a system, right?
Mhm.
Your taste buds and how they inform your brain about what's coming through in the food. And then your brain talks to your endocrine, to your enzymes to your pancreas and stomach about the different enzymes that may or may not need to be produced. That's a system. The receptors in your cells along your gastrointestinal tract that pick up advanced glycation end products, or it's called RAGE, so the receptor for advanced glycation end products. This is a system, and so on and so forth. So there are tens, hundreds of systems in the body, some more major than others. Speak a lot to our patients about HPA, right? The thalamus pituitary adrenal system, HPG, the gonadal system in line with HP. So these are all systems. Now, every time a system picks up a threat or what it thinks is a threat, it needs to decide, am I going to allocate expensive resources to dealing with this threat? It's yes or no. What are in that decision-making tree? The decision-making tree is going to be, are other systems also picking up this threat? If they are, then this threat is likely real. If not, then okay, we might just sit on this for a bit.
Mhm.
If the system has seen this threat before, the patterns match, it's going to jump on it faster. If the threat is overwhelming the system, it's going to act unilaterally before checking in with other systems. And so this beautiful dance, this concert that's happening in your body, right, is something that we have to be mindful of, because if we don't step in at some point as a little bit of a conductor as well, if we allow our cells and systems to run away with itself, which is the placebo and nocebo, by the way, taking some control means I see there's smoke and my eyes are starting to run because the guardian sight system is kicking in. So your body is trying to protect you. It's going to make tears so that the soot doesn't go into the eyes. Your nose is going to start running so that the mucus is going to wrap itself around the soot so it doesn't go into your lungs. You're going to start coughing, for example, even before soot gets to you, by the way. You're going to start coughing because you want to make sure that whatever it is you're expelling, and you're going to start panicking a little bit because you want to move away from the smoke. There are people who panic and it's all over Red Rover. And there are people who go, okay, I see the smoke. Thank you very much, body, for alerting me to it. I'm in control. I'm going to make my way away from that smoke, but we don't need to panic. And you'll find that their symptoms are better than the person who does panic,
Mhm.
because the system starts to respond not just to the smoke, but it also responds to the epinephrine and norepinephrine that's being excreted by your adrenal glands in response to how you are responding to the threat, adrenaline and noradrenaline.
So I guess that speaks exactly to what you were sort of explaining before about people going to the emergency department for non-emergencies. It's like that. I call it the salience network in the brain. There's lots of different components of the brain that go into that alert or alarm state, but it's almost exactly what you're saying. It's like you want that part of your brain to be alert. It needs to
Yes.
be alert to different, if it's smoke, or am I actually allergic to this food, or what is happening in my external environment. But you want the buffer. It sounds like what you're saying. You want the buffer between alert and alarm.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. I'm going to use that, Anthea.
You can take it. That's fine.
Oh,
So
thanks, mate.
how can we help ourselves be alert, but not necessarily alarmed?
Okay, this is a great question, and it's actually different for everybody. But I think that it goes back to what you've been banging on about, and that is your symptoms are a way for your body to talk to you. So when you have an alert, you're eating something like a tomato and your mouth gets a little bit itchy. We know that a lot of these histamines in foods can cause someone with histamine intolerance to have symptoms. Now, why is your histamine bucket full? Or why is your histamine bucket smaller today, right? So it's not about going and getting an antihistamine. I mean, that obviously can be handy, but we can talk about that later. So, but it's like, okay, my histamine bucket is smaller at the moment because I'm not allergic to tomatoes, but I know that sometimes when I have high histamine foods, I can get these symptoms. So my body is saying to me, your capacity is a little bit lower at the moment, and the histamine in this food is triggering that the bucket to overflow. So stop eating the high histamine foods at that period of time, and then look back over the last 12, 24 hours as to what has happened to change the bucket size or capacity. And you'll start seeing things which we all know, the stressors of life and poor sleep and, overexposure to blue light after dark and not getting enough exercise in and fighting with your husband and, all these things. And they're just gentle reminders from your body that you actually have to look after the fundamentals. Plug. No, but so, and for me, it always starts with gratitude and honoring your body. Thank you so much for turning on inflammation, for alerting me, for telling me that you're a little bit unhappy, for, highlighting some behaviors that I've done recently, which have led to this point in time where I have a headache or, I'm sneezing all the time or, I'm having sensitivities to certain foods again.
Mm.
Honoring your body by saying, hey, I hear you. So right now I'm going to increase our bandwidth by staying away from those things. And I'm going to look after myself in some way, shape or form. Give yourself a hug. I started doing that, by the way. Give yourself a hug.
It's actually
Talk nice.
amazing when you give yourself a hug. It feels so good.
Right.
Everyone who's
Speaking
listening, give
nicely to
yourself a
yourself.
hug right now.
Yes. Speaking nicely to yourself. Like these seem so small and woo and a little bit rubbish and people are rolling their eyes, but it really isn't, right? Basically, you treat yourself how you would treat a friend that walked through the door and said, some stuff is wrong, like not right with my body at the moment. I've got a headache or I don't feel great or whatever it is. You sit them down, you make them a cup of tea, you give them a hug and you ask them what's wrong. Cup of tea. Right, let's go. And so I think that even though we can, of course, talk about the supplements when it comes to histamine intolerance, like vitamin C, making sure that your copper is adequate, looking at magnesium, the very fact that the genes that look after the DAO enzyme, which breaks down histamine in the body, is AOC, and the C is for copper. Like, of course, we can go down this path, right? It's like a very well trodden path by functional medicine doctors.
It's like, well, why is your copper high in the first place? Why is your body holding it?
Right. Like,
Do you have copper exposure in your environment, or are you holding it because you've been chronically stressed and your body holds it? And then it's like they all feed into each other.
or you don't have enough copper.
Mm.
Because you're overdoing it on the zinc supplementation, right? Because when we try to be too clever by telling the body what it needs, by shoving a therapeutic, in inverted commas, doses of supplements into patients, sometimes we get it wrong because we don't have billions of years of evolution encoded in the way we do our protocols, right? It's like honestly, we're so oversimplistic.
We
Don't get
can't
me wrong.
we can't outsmart the body. It knows. You hack one pathway or one system and it not affect all of the other ones.
Right.
And I think it's really interesting because I grew up in sort of like alternative medicine. If we had a headache, we never reached for a Panadol. It was always, why do you have a headache? So that's how I grew up, which is great. However, I did notice that I would start to use supplements as a Band-Aid. It was just a different,
Same.
it's like, well, you're just using, instead of using Panadol, you're using magnesium or you're using like something else. Like it's the same core belief of my body doesn't know what's going on. I need something external to fix it. And it's okay because it's a supplement, it's not a medication.
Exactly. And the thing is, people are going to be asking here, well, if you're low in magnesium and you got the headache, then of course you should be using the magnesium to help with the headache. So just in case anybody's saying that, of course, just like medications, right? Supplements need to be used judiciously. But what we're saying here is not about putting that external thing into our body in a short, acute kind of way and then not changing our lifestyle, not changing our diet, not having a deeper look. I absolutely prescribe supplements for my patients, but now it comes with a big chat about what are you doing day to day? How are you honoring your body and the environment that you're living in by absolutely giving it great nutrient dense foods or, ritualizing your tea drinking ceremonies or whatever you want to call it, right? And when we are in situations like in Australia where the soil is so depleted of selenium, then you have to have special tweaks. So of course, Brazil nuts are the first things that we think about when it comes to selenium. But if you can't have Brazil nuts, then okay, yeah, supplement, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's about acknowledging this and thanking your body and letting it be part of that decision making tree that that treatment paradigm too, as opposed to just shove. And look, I speak to my body a lot. And so over the years, I have seen what I'm capable of shifting, what I'm not. I've got to a point now where if I get a mozzie bite, I generally speaking, all things being fair, I am absolutely able to talk the inflammation down and talk the itch away. Thank you so much for turning on inflammation. What happened here is that there was a mosquito that bit me, and I know that you're a little bit upset by the proteins that come off the little, thingamajig, and you're now rallying the troops, and you're trying to like make sure that there's no infection, and that I'm not going to die of malaria and all the rest. But thank you so much. However, the mozzie is now gone. We are safe and we are okay. So please decrease inflammation, because I don't want this itch anymore. I'm fully aware of what's happening there. And I don't need the itch, because an itch is an evolutionary driver to make you scratch, because it's trying to make you scratch the threat away. So I don't need to scratch the threat away. The threat is no longer there. I'm fully aware of what's happening. Thank you very much. And then, of course, a little bit of tapping. And I'm 9.5 times out of 10, I can do it.
Mm.
And so I've been building on that slowly over the last 5 years. What can I get away with? What can I tell my body to do? What can I, And so I've seen, changes to my paradigm, and what what factors happen, which changes how much my body is going to listen to my words and all the rest. It's been fascinating. Capacity changes as well.
I think exactly what you were saying there, that little riff about the mozzie bites, it's really helping your body feel it's safe. You're safe, which is a lot to do with that. Okay, you're alert, but you're not alarmed. We're helping your body have that buffer of, you're not alarmed. Yes, we're aware that this is happening. And sometimes I often just say to patients, sometimes it's as simple as just pausing and stopping, whether you're in an overwhelmed storm of thoughts of whatever's going on in your mind, or whether you've got a headache, or whether you've got itchy skin, or whatever you've got. Sometimes it's just pausing and saying, am I safe now? Just asking your body that, and then also saying, I'm safe right now. Obviously, sometimes we are not in a safe environment, and that's important also to have. It's like, then this is where the internal and the external environments come in. If you're constantly having to ask yourself, am I safe right now? Am I safe right now? Am I safe right now? And you're in that overwhelmed state, or you're in that alarm state, what would you say to people that don't necessarily, or they feel like they always have to continually be asking themselves that? Is it that their alarm state is locked on, or possibly is it a combination of they need to change something in their environment or in their lifestyle because their body is telling them, hey, there's something not right here?
Probably both. We can't spend our entire life trying to muzzle our body and the messages that it's trying to give us, and then expect that. So interoception, sorry, I was just about to talk about interoception. So interoception or interoceptive capability is being able to hear and know what your body needs or wants. Thirst is an interoception. Hunger, feeling hot or cold, those are all interoceptions, right? And it obviously extends far beyond that. But when we are hungry and then we push through, when we're tired at the end of the day, but then we stay up another 4 hours doom scrolling in the dark, looking at a blue screen, telling our pineal gland that it's daytime. This is all really good ways of forcing a dissociation between what our body thinks it knows and then what it's forced to endure, i.e. it starts to doubt itself. And this dissociation is also between your mind and your body, right? So we have in any given day, we have thousands of ways that we don't honor our body, that we force a dissociation, where our body's asking for something and we say, I know you're asking for rest, but I just want to get in this one last gym class because, whatever. I know that you want me to drink water, but I'm just going to have this glass of wine instead. There's water and wine, isn't there? Little things like that. It's when we know that we should have boundaries and not give too much of ourselves, especially women, but we do it still. We're so tired, but we say to our friend, yeah, I can totally pick up your kids for you. That's no problem. And I'm not saying not to be a good neighbor, but I'm saying that you have to honor yourself and understand that every time we don't honor ourselves, don't honor our symptoms, don't honor what we want and feel, and we push through, or we do the exact opposite of what our body is asking, that it's a paper cut and you can bleed out of 1,000 paper cuts. And then when you turn around and you're surprised that your interoception is out of whack, it takes time for your body to trust itself again, for that coherence to be brought back into the system. Because all this winds up being is every time there is, a threat, and then your system starts to act one of the systems starts to act unilaterally, even though the threat wasn't a true threat, it was just a perceived threat or whatever it is. That's decoherence. You have enough decoherence in enough systems in the body, that's chaos. Mm-hmm. So the patients that are experiencing chaos that I see are the chronic fatigue syndrome patients, right? Are the patients who have these complex chronic system issues, mystery illnesses, people who get aquagenic urticaria, people who drink water and have a sensitivity reaction. They get, swollen lips and what have you. Like, that's chaos. Mm-hmm. And chaos is a way for your body to walk up to the alarm system and pull it, and like, they're demanding attention now, because it only has so many resources left in the bank to help you survive, right? So I think that one way that patients can sort of reintegrate is, first of all, I'm a big fan of somatic practices, right? I think many of us overthink things and we need to get back in our bodies. So exercise is something that everyone talks about, yes, but other somatic practices include really simple things where you are giving your body the bandwidth to reintegrate. What I mean by that is, and this is the example I use all the time with my patients, what you see needs to correlate with what you smell, what you taste, what you touch. So when you go to the beach and your opsin, so your light receptors and your UV receptors in your skin, you see the sun. Your skin needs to feel the sun. So sunscreens. If your skin feels the sun, please don't use sunglasses all the time. Wear a cap. Because when you wear sunglasses, the wavelengths of light that come through and hit your rhodopsins, so your light receptors in your eyes, is different from the light receptors that are hitting your skin. That's a decoherence. You don't want to be wearing shoes because your eyes can see the sand. It needs to feel the sand. It needs to believe that you are not a broken animal, because broken animals need to go into the cave so that that's where they can be safe and be repaired, right? Cellular repair. So it's about integrating these different, what's happening around you. If something hurtful happens to you, be sad, feel the sadness. If something happens that's going to make you angry, be angry for the moment, then step back and look at why you're angry, because usually, as Yoda said, fear is behind anger. So all these little things is just little exercises to try and reintegrate things that are happening in your mind and your body, and allow yourself the bandwidth to trust itself again. It takes time.
Yeah, and I love that, the coherence between your different senses. I know there are so many different somatic practices that you can be doing, and sometimes you see all these videos on Instagram or online and it's like, oh my gosh, that looks so profound and huge, and everyone's in their body and they're releasing all these different things, and that's what it means to do somatic practices. But somatic is just body feeling. Giving yourself a hug, that's a somatic practice. So it's
100%.
love that, like, getting in touch and having alignment between the different senses. I've never thought about it like that. It's like, what your eyes see and the receptivity of that, you also want your skin to be able to feel, and you want the coherence with your feet. It sounds so simple, but it makes so much sense. Like, of course, because then it's not like the wires are getting crossed and your body's thinking, wait, what? It's sort of like when we would know, like, if someone is crying and they're looking really upset and they go, no, I'm fine, I'm really happy. You'd be like, okay, that's like, there's something not aligned there. That doesn't make any sense. So it's almost the same in exactly what you're saying. It's like, if you feel sadness, feel it. Instead of going, oh, I'm sad, but your mind's trying to tell you, oh no, but it's fine. And then you just hold it in, and then it starts to manifest as something else.
Let's take a body break. Think of one thing you've been holding on to tightly. An idea, a to-do list, an expectation, and just let it go for now. Unclench your jaw, wiggle your fingers, soften your stomach. You're allowed to feel safe right now. Let this be enough.
Yeah. Well, dissociation studies, a lot of adults, including myself, a lot of adults actually hold some dissociation, because painful feelings, guess what, are painful. And some of us never learned the tools to deal with painful and to sit with painful emotions, right? So what you do is you ignore them instead, and then you busy yourself with, some people do unsavory activities like drugs or whatever it is, and then other people go out and do slightly more, better activities like, I don't know, exercise and all the rest of it. And even though the exercise and the socializing with friends is important as an element that goes into dealing with whatever it is, you also have to feel it. And you have to honor the emotion that's come up, because your emotion originated within you. So there's something about your body that needs to express that. Dissociation is something that we see very starkly and painfully in children because, fight, flight, right? When you are in a heightened state of fear, frustration, anger, you go into a sympathetic nervous system state, which is what we call fight, flight, which means you want to run or you want to fight. Now, of course, it's a little bit broader than that, but that's the gist of it. And children can't run, generally speaking, in very dire toxic situations. And it's harder for them to fight, of course. And so what happens is, because their body has to stay where it is, their mind goes elsewhere. That's a dissociation. And dissociation, as you can see, can be very protective, right? But as adults, we need to see what it is that are we still hanging on to dissociative patterns from the past? Is it serving us now? And if it's not, we need to work on it, because we're adults now. We have control over what we do, how we think, what we say.
I think I talk about in my book, but a similar thing happened to me. When you're younger and you can't run away, you can't fight back, you disassociate, you go into your mind. And it's looking at that, whatever your coping mechanisms are, and having the compassion. I'd be curious to know, from a psychoneuroimmunology, it's a tongue twister.
Sorry, PNI.
PNI is much easier. The role that compassion plays, having self-compassion and having compassion for other people.
Yeah, compassion is literally increasing bandwidth, justly increasing bandwidth for yourself and what you're going through, bandwidth for someone else and what they possibly going through. It's almost like taking a pause, taking a big breath, but doing it from like the heart, right? So if I do something, and I used to beat myself up a hell of a lot more than I do now. I still beat myself up, but I have a lot more compassion for myself, because I'm no longer caught in this paradigm where there is no tomorrow almost. Like, this has happened now, and like, I can't believe I did that. And, and I'm stuck in this state of angst, not realizing if I just took a breath and go, okay, well, I'm going to have some wisdom here and understand the things I can't change. And I tried my best. And even if I didn't try my best, I can try my best tomorrow. I can try my best the next time I do this. Everything just seems to lighten up, right? Because we are not faced with as many emergencies as we think that we are. I think this social media and the movies and TV shows that we get bombarded with, and the deadlines in inverted commas that are imposed on us at work, creates this idea that life is just one emergency after another. And your nervous system, in trying to protect you, stays in a heightened sense of alertness, because, well, you never know when you have to jump into action. Right. And there is definitely something to be said about the fact that your body, because it wants you to survive, yes, it is ready to fight, flight, for example, when it needs to, but it's different. And I want to explore this with you, actually, because I'm actually formulating this in my head as we speak. When we don't give our body enough information, and when I say enough information, I mean our thoughts and feelings, yes, but also somatic inputs. So if we're sitting at a desk and staring at a screen, we haven't moved our legs and our joints, and we haven't moved our neck in a really long time. That means that, from an evolutionary perspective, is there something wrong with this animal? Point would an animal do that, caught in this like freeze mode, right? Staring at something of a particular distance for hours on end. You'd never do that. There's something wrong with this animal, or it's in freeze mode. I just realized that. Cool, thank you.
And it's interesting, from a chiropractic perspective, I think about when we are adjusting, or when we're just moving our body, we're not stuck at a desk, it's stimulating proprioception, which is that
exactly.
sense.
That's
and
right.
Then that feeds into the cerebellum, which then feeds into the upper cortex. And when the upper cortex is more alert, we have better posture. We don't go into free swan posture.
Yes.
And also, we have that ability to go, I'm just alert, I'm not alarmed. It actually
Yeah.
calms down that
Yeah.
more internal, deeper structures of our brain, which are the fight flight.
Because the brain is an iterative structure. It needs all this information so that it can calculate risk. If it needs, it's a little bit like if your friends are robbing a bank and you're the getaway driver and you've got the car outside the bank, you keep the car running.
Mm-hmm.
You don't turn the car off, because when your friends come back out being chased by security and then you have to turn the car on, you're going to waste precious seconds. And that's a little bit like the body. It wants constant information so that it can constantly calculate risk, because it's an iterative structure. It has, in all these different, timelines and dimensions, if you want to call it that, it has all the different things that it could possibly happen. And in trying to make sure that you survive, it's going to be ready for anything. But it's a little bit like preparing for an exam. When you've prepared for weeks, months for this exam, you are able to walk in with more confidence and more calm, because you got this. You have all the information. When you walk into an exam and you haven't prepared, you panic because you don't know what's coming and you don't know your shit. So in other words, you're screwed. So this giving the body as much information as possible is part of that calm alertness, as opposed to something else. I'm actually, I'm reformulating my frameworks, having this conversation with you.
It's interesting on that information. I think it's called a broadcast channel on Instagram, where it's sort of like a direct DM to different people. And I wrote in there literally this morning about how sometimes we're seeking so much information, and that seeking of information is actually the thing that's stopping us from being able to heal, because we're so, like, for instance, let's say you might be listening to this and you have endometriosis. You've been diagnosed with endometriosis, and all of your feed is filled with everyone talking about endometriosis. Try this different thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, like talk to this doctor, take this supplement, do this lifestyle thing. And there's so much information. And our body, it's not doing anything bad. You're trying to solve what's going on. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. However, I know for me, if I'm like stuck in this warp of maybe my algorithm is showing me relationship things, or it's showing me money things, or it's showing me something that's not necessarily to do with health, my mind can go into fear and panic around that certain topic that is in my algorithm. So it's like this information overload. It's too much information, maybe.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think we're talking about slightly separate things, because I was talking at that cellular level where the cells are picking up information from the internal and external environments to be able to calculate risk, right? But then jumping to what you're saying now, you're absolutely right. Because if patients can only heal in a parasympathetic state, right, that rest and digest state, patients can really truly heal in a parasympathetic state. And when they're constantly looking around the corner, and both of us have patients like that, when they're constantly looking around the corner and they can't actually lean into a protocol or a treatment paradigm or whatever it is, like they want to, what about this doc? Oh, I checked this out on Google and my friend sent me this, and I was at a party yesterday and someone told me about this supplement. Should I be taking? They can't relax into the treatments that they have at the moment. Those are patients who will find it really hard to heal, because they are caught in the future, the worry and what have you, and they're never really truly here. And it's most devastating that I've seen that with cancer patients, for example. Cancer, and of course, geez, if it were me, like, you're terrified. Of course you are. But the cancer patients who are able to find their quarterback, commit to the therapies or commit to the protocol that they're in, lean into it, and really dig deep in that protocol paradigm, they tend to do a little bit better than the patients who just can't be present with their protocol, and they're constantly looking around. That's a really hard one, but you're
And
right.
I think that actually reminds me, I went and saw Gabor Mate a couple of weeks ago when he was in the Gold Coast. And he had question time at the end, and there was a lady that asked a question. She had stage 4 bowel cancer, and she wasn't sure she'd done 2 rounds of chemotherapy already. And she also I think she was a naturopath, or she'd been seeing naturopaths as well. She was trying to go sort of the quote unquote natural route and medical, and she wasn't sure which route to go, which one was the correct way to go. And she basically was asking Gabor Mate, what should I do? And he said, I can't tell you what to do. you are the person that's going to decide. But he gave examples of 2 people that he writes about in his book. He had one person that had uterine cancer, stage 4, and all of her medical doctors were saying, you need to get a hysterectomy, you need to have the organ removed. And she was so certain and trusted herself. She's like, no, I know I don't need to do that. I'm going to do this natural way, and I just trust that my body can heal myself, and I'm going to do that. And he explained, he's like, and she healed her cancer, went away. He's like, this is not anecdotal. I know her doctor. I've seen the scans. I've seen the reports. It completely disappeared. And then he also explained this other patient that was, I think she had bone or lung cancer, but it had spread all throughout her body. And it was so significant that medical care wasn't an option. They're like, we can't give you any drugs or surgery to help you. So she was like, okay, well, I'm going to take this into my own hands and I'm going to heal myself in different ways through lifestyle and thoughts and things. And she healed herself to the degree that then medication and surgery was appropriate. So she used a combination. So, and he said they're both alive now, 15 years later. So the thing that I took from that and sort of what you were saying is it always comes back to trusting your body and being able to connect to your body, your compass, and go, what feels good for me? Like you can take in all of the information, but what feels good for me? So what would you say to someone that is in a state of, well, I don't even know what's good for me. I don't even know how to connect to that.
Look, if we're just following on quickly with the cancer stuff, and I think I'm going to jump off the cancer train, but I think what patients have to realize is there is no wrong answer. There isn't. And there are plenty of right answers. FOMO, fear of missing out, that state that your body is in, that's detrimental for sure. We know that. But I have seen patients heal and do well with conventional chemotherapy, radiotherapy. And I have seen patients do well with combo, and I have seen patients do well without chemotherapy and radiotherapy and just supplements and natural and inverted commas therapies. There is no wrong answer. Like you said, it's about trusting your body, about doing what's right for you. And I think it's a really hard one for some patients because we all also know someone who went down the just conventional route and they believed in it and and didn't do well. And also people who did just the alternative stuff and also didn't do well. Right?
Time for a body break. This isn't just a moment to skip, it's a moment to connect, especially if what we've been chatting about has stirred something up. Take a breath in and place a hand over your heart. And breathing out, connect to the beat underneath your hand. Can you feel it? This is your body's way of saying, I'm here and I've got you.
And the other question that you had now was how patients can.
How we can find our internal compass.
Oh, yeah. So, finding the internal compass is different for everyone. And I can only go off what I've seen with myself and my patients, which is why I know it's different for everybody. But that reintegrating the inputs and the outputs is one, right? What you see is what you hear is what you taste. So that's one. Two is really, really small baby steps. Because when you start talking to yourself, you actually open up this, not just in real life channels of communication, but energetic channels of communication too. So when you're talking to yourself and saying, hey, I love you, I got you, saying words of self-compassion, those sorts of things, there's this energy channel that starts to open up. Taking deep breaths before emotional outbursts or taking deep breaths before letting your mind run away from you. Like these little things, the pauses, they really help to allow your body and your mind to start coming together again in a coherent way to truly take stock of what's happening in the body and the situation that you're in. So, like you were saying before, there's so many somatic practices. There's so many sound practices as well. Exercise. It's whatever it is that sings to you, but just being really kind with yourself. And how do we trust someone else? How do we develop trust someone else in our life, they're consistent with us.
And
That's
congruent.
it. And congruent. Exactly. What they say is what they mean. They mean what they say. They're going to do something, they do it. It's the exact same thing with your body and your mind. So many people will go, oh, I'm going to start exercising. That's great. And then they have these very like, oh, I'm going to do 1 hour. Yeah, I'm going to do like 3 Pilates classes a week, this, that, and the other. It's like, no, 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 slow down, right?
We're
Slow
not in a
down.
rush. There's no urgency.
There's no
I
rush
got
because
time.
right. So you can do that hour-long session in the gym for sure. But don't forget the aim of the game here, apart from the exercise and developing your cardiac capabilities and all the rest of it, the other exercise that you're trying to do is trying to reconnect with your body, and you're trying to trust your body again, and you're trying to improve that interoceptive capability. You got to be consistent. What can you be consistent with? And keep that bar as low as you can. I'm going to do 1 sit up a day. Doc, I can do 5. No, I know you can, but you're going to promise yourself 1 sit up a day because you know you're going to be able to do it. And when you say you're going to do something and then you do it, your body becomes happy. You're consistent. Then you exceed the expectation by doing 5 sit ups. I mean, call in the band, right?
Yeah.
It's like with younger children. So younger children don't actually understand, punishment and these very big concepts. What they understand is consistency. So when I was with a partner who had kids, I was playing stepmom for a bit. And most people, when a child does something bad, in inverted commas, they want to punish the child, and there's lots of screaming and punishments and yelling and go to your room and all that. No, you can't have dinner and what have you. Children push back because they're looking for the boundaries, because boundaries make them feel safe. It's the exact same thing with your body, right? So with a child, with these kids, I'd be like, this is what I'm going to do today. I mean, this is what I'm going to do now. If this behavior continues, for example, and it'll always be something small and ridiculous, but it'll be like, I'm going to sit on the floor and not say anything for 30 seconds. And we'll be in the middle of a shopping center. Now, how is that a punishment? These kids are it's not a punishment. But the thing is, you say you're going to do something and you do it. So I sit down on the floor for 30 seconds and don't say anything. And it just changes everybody's state. And it's surprisingly effective. So be that for your body too, be consistent, be congruent, as you said.
Yeah, I love that. So, in summary, we've spoken about a lot, and I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. But what would you say are five things that you would recommend to anybody? And I know I myself, when I get interviewed and people say, what should 5 of the top things that people should do? What we've spoken about in this whole conversation is that you need to know what's right for you. But from a bank of possible tools that could be beneficial for someone, what would be your top 5 things?
All right. So these are 5 things that at some point I may have said to some patients. 1 is some sort of ritual. It doesn't have to be big. Stop thinking big, think small. Right. So my ritual is that I wake up. First thing I do is I put the kettle on, have a glass of water, then I brew my tea and I take that tea outside and I sit barefoot on the grass, welcoming the sun. That's 10 minutes. But it's a little ritual that's mine. You can make your ritual whatever you want, because rituals help anchor the body. It's like a little bit of a North Star, right? When you have rituals and schedules and stuff. And I'm a digital nomad, right? Which means I don't have schedules. So I understand how important they can be. But when you have little rituals, when you have little schedules, you anchor the body, you anchor the mind. Just like that's why they talk about making sure that you see the sunrise, or at least early morning sunlight. It's a daylight anchoring for your circadian rhythm. And it's the exact same thing with everything else. Just tiny little things that will anchor you.
Consistency.
Be consistent. Yes. Be consistent with whatever messages that you are sending to your body. That congruency that you mentioned before, that self-compassion. I talk to patients about going into wide open spaces, because a wide open space would be a dangerous space for prey, but you're not prey, you're alpha, right? And you need to convince your body that you are safe. Wide open space, chest up, chin up, right? Hands in a parasympathetic setting, right? Your hands are out, palm out, because you don't have to hold a weapon, and you're not doing this, which means that you're trying to protect your internal organs. No, you're safe. You're okay. Up, out. And then you're going to use your head and you're going to survey the horizon nice and slow, because you're not your eyes aren't darting backwards and forwards. You're not scared. This is your domain. You are going to sweep the horizon with your eyes and your head, and this just proves to your body, right, that you can look for danger if you wanted to. That your eyes are able to look far, i.e., anticipate dangers from afar if you wanted to. You're not doing that right now. You're just proving that you can, right? So that's another one. The other one is walking barefoot. Your feet were the one things that were always meant to be in contact with the ground, pretty much. One part of your body that was meant to be 90 something percent of the time in contact with the ground. And it's not just about grounding, which of course is very important, right? But it's giving that brain that sensory information as well. So the one part of your body that was always meant to be in contact with something is also the one part of the body that we constantly muzzle with sensory deprivation chambers, also known as shoes. Give that body that information. Touch things, smell things, taste things, chew things. So I don't know if that's 5, but those are some of the things that I talked about my patients
I love that. It's basically what I say and what you say is your body knows. Give your body what it needs. And if you don't know what it needs, it's coming back to, well, what did we give it hundreds of years ago? And sometimes it's just as simple as that. I often, sometimes when when I've been in the state of like, oh, I don't really know what I need or what's working, what's not, and things, I ask myself now, is this working for me or is it not working for me? Just a simple phrase. And it's great. And exactly what you've just said there with the wide open spaces, something that has been working for me recently is not so recently because we're recording this just after the cyclone. But before the cyclone hit, it was going for a nighttime bike ride on my e-bike.
Yeah.
And just looking at the stars, and there was no one around. And it was literally like, how freeing is this? I'm moving my body. I feel so safe. And it's just like, I get to look up at the stars and see like how vast and amazing this is. So it's so interesting when you're saying like going out and changing your body position. I'm like, oh, maybe that's part of the reason why I feel so amazing when I do that.
Yeah.
And it's also so much better than laying in bed all curled up looking at a phone.
Yeah, because the bidirectionality of that evolutionary behavior is that looking up also means that if there was going to be a sign, so clouds moving in, the colors of the sky, birds, that kind of stuff, signs that can tell you information about your environment, then you have that information and you're ready. But if you never look up, you'll never get those signs, and your body doesn't like that. From an evolutionary perspective, it's like, please get us information, please touch something, look at something.
Yeah, I know. It's all that sensory. And sometimes it's like, well, that's what kids need.
Yeah.
Kids get pent up inside and they're not stimulated. It's like they need to run around, touch the grass, move their body, be in the sun, have all of that sensory stimulation. And we know if they don't, they're pent up. Yeah.
Before the age of 7, if they're not like, do you know how many children I know now who don't actually know what a tree touch feels like, because they won't touch. When would you touch a tree unless you were sort of navigating a forest, so there's no path, so you have to touch a tree to move, for example, or climb a tree. Otherwise, you wouldn't go up to touch a tree, because I do. I go up to hug trees, right?
Same. We love to hug things, clearly.
So some kids don't know what a tree feels like. And it's really, I mean, it's sad on the one hand, for sure, but it's actually really dangerous as well. Knowing how much the brain needs this kind of information, them not knowing what something looks like, and then their brain has a map already of what it possibly feels like. Then when you touch it, it's able to change the map just ever so slightly. That's valuable information. Because, so for example, last example, I know I have to go, you got to go. So I was just in Thailand with my boyfriend, and I walk barefoot all the time, right? So I can do barefoot. I mean, I've done barefoot hiking, all that sort of stuff. And he doesn't, because he's an average person who uses shoes all the time. So we're at a beach, and we're about to go on this rock climb to the next beach. And I'm not wearing shoes. He goes, oh, are you going to wear shoes? I'm like, no. He goes, oh, but it's going to hurt. No, because I look at the rocks, and my brain already has a whole catalog of different rocks, how painful it might be, how long I can be on those rocks for, all that kind of stuff. I look at the rock, I'm like, no. So as we're walking, and I'm about to step on a different type of rock, he goes, be careful. I said, why? He goes, that looks like it's going to be sharp. It looks like that, but my brain knows it's not going to be, because I've stepped on rocks like that before. I hadn't thought about that. I need to call him after this and tell him.
I love it. And it's an ending tradition on this podcast that I ask the experts this final question. So in keeping with children, if you were to give birth to a little baby girl tomorrow, what's one belief about her body that you would want her to carry with her?
Wow. That she is powerful, that she has so much control of the feelings that she generates within her body, not just emotions, but like visceral feelings as well. She has control over all of that. And when something pops up that isn't what she thinks to be driven from her, it's her body talking to her. So to develop a beautiful relationship with it. I'll, the last couple of generations, certainly my generation, where it's like, you know, constantly looking at someone else and thinking they've got it, they're more beautiful than I am, and my body's not enough, and this, that, and the other. Like I went through all that rubbish as well when I was in my teens and my 20s, and I've really gotten to a stage now where I don't give this much of a shit, and I'm so much happier. And I think that I need to talk to my daughter more about feelings and about how all these things which we've been told are not normal or whatever it is, right? Hair, for example. What? Bumps and lumps and, small breasts or uneven breasts or whatever it may be that I have been told is not normal, not acceptable. It's like you make a decision about your own body. Thank you very much. And your body is beautiful. And like you have so much control over what comes up from within.
I love that. Olivia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Anthea. See you soon.
Bye.
If this episode resonated and you feel like you're stuck in the space between symptoms and solutions, you're not alone. I've been there too, and that's why I created all of this. From the book, if you're just starting to listen, or the test if you want clarity your bloods couldn't give you, or the body-led experience if you've tried doing it all and still feel flat. Well, sometimes you need something specific, like one of our symptom series for a deep dive support on topics like fatigue and menopause. So wherever you start, just know your body's already guiding you. Share this with someone who needs it, and don't forget to follow and rate the show. Please remember, this episode is for educational purposes only. Always consult a qualified health practitioner before making any medical decisions. Every body is different, and so is every healing journey.